Perfect, perfect. All right, so we are in day 2, still week 1, and we're going to talk about network access. Now, yesterday we talked about, the network in a whole. What is a network? We talked about different devices. We talked about what entails a network and what you consider for the network as far as, speed and making sure that it's always up and making sure that it's reliable, because we want to make sure that we can talk to our friends and family and just conduct work without a bunch of downtime. So we just talked about it in whole. So now we're going to actually go in and talk about the different layers of a network. Okay, so layer 1, we kind of mentioned that already. If you look down here, it's the physical layer. Now, before I even go into the layers, this right here is called the OSI layer, right? Intersystems, open systems, interconnect something, I don't know, but it's OSI layer. And basically it's just a framework to help network engineers and network architects troubleshoot the network. So we can kind of give a visual representation of the flow of data. So when it's time to troubleshoot, let's say the network goes down or someone can't access Wi-Fi or whatever the case may be, we can use this, we can reference this and be like, okay, this wrong, is let's check the cables, let's check the switches, let's check, we're going to go, either up or down, it just depends on your position. Maybe you are a technician, you probably start at physical because, you have access to Ethernet cables and changing out computers. Or maybe, even if you're a network engineer, I definitely start at physical. Hey, is your cables plugged in? What's going on? Power on and off. And then I'm going to actually start diving into the network. Or you may be like a software developer, software engineer. You're probably going to start off at application 7. How is the data being presented? What application are you using? How's it being presented? Is it, not giving you enough time? Maybe it's supposed to say 5 minutes, but it keeps cutting off in 3 minutes. I don't know. But again, this is a framework of how we and, the network team, IT team too, troubleshoot our issues. Okay. So physical 1. This is layer 1. We talked about it yesterday. Cables. We're going to talk about hub. NICS is a network interface card. It's a card that helps your computer actually access the network. So it's like a little chip you use, whatever. You don't, if you, into building computers, then yeah, but just know that it's a network interface card. And you have the cables that, connect to that NIC, and that's the computer or server. And like we said yesterday, it sends the data on the physical wire. So whether it's electric or it's light, which is fiber or copper, Ethernet, then those are the ones and zeros it's going to send, right? Once it gets through the from your computer to the wires, it's going to, let me see if I can, let me see, maybe I can, okay, so we got your computer, right? And then we have the wires, the Ethernet cable, and that's going to be connected into a switch, which is layer 2, network access, which we are going to talk about today. Okay, we're going to dive into that more today, which we're going to talk about switches. And we're going to talk more about reading MAC address from data packets. So we're going to kind of go into how the data access our network before it gets to all these layers. And these layers is, it goes to a router, and the router helps us get to the internet so we can talk to people outside of our local area. We'll talk about what local area networks are. And then that'll basically transmit into how is this data being transported? We talked about that. Is it TCP, with the handshake, or UDP without a handshake, right? Once it tells me if it's a, handshake or not, then it can go up to this session. Is this session going to last 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 20 minutes? How long do you have access to this, right? More probably in security, right? And then how is this data being presented, right? Is it encrypted? You see a JPEG, like what's going on? And lastly, the application that you use. Are you using Facebook? Are you using, Gmail? Are you using Notion, Zoom? And it just basically repeats itself all the way back down to send the data in reverse, right? All of these things happen within milliseconds, right? And as a network engineer, you have to know what happens in those seconds. And this is what happens in those seconds, right? And we were gonna go through these. We went through this yesterday. We'll go through this today, and then this day 3, and then we'll kind of, go a little bit more. And of course, we'll end this lesson this week off with learning a little bit development with HTML, CSS, APIs, because this all goes in tandem, right? Okay. Any questions on that before we dive deeper? No? Okay. So access. When we're talking about access, you can do a home access or you can do a work access. So it's different types of access to the network. Obviously, our home network, that's what we're mostly on. Our internet service provider, which you'll see a lot, ISP, will be someone local, right? AT&T, I have AT&T. You might have Comcast or something very simple, right? And it's probably wireless. You probably got a Wi-Fi box. You probably don't even connect through it through Ethernet cable. So that's my little Wi-Fi. Don't judge me. Or you can access the network through work, through a business. And that's usually a VPN, right? Especially when we're talking about remote access. But even if so, you still get on the VPN. And that ISP, they usually use Lumen. I don't know if you probably heard, but as we dig deeper, as you get deeper into tech and networking, you'll hear Lumen. And bandwidth. These are ones that I see a lot in the industry. I've probably had 4 contracts since I've started this journey, and they always have Lumen and bandwidth. And they have others as well, other vendors, but Lumen and bandwidth is kind of like the industry standard for internet service, right? This is the provider. And if you get a job with Lumen and bandwidth, then that basically means you work with the service provider, and you probably need a little more in-depth knowledge, and you probably get paid more. I don't know. But regardless, both of these ways you can access the network, and both are private, right? Meaning that you need permission to access this. Public will be something like the airport or the library, but now at times you still need some type of password to access that too. So most of the time you don't really see just hop on this Wi-Fi and use it. You need some type of access, whether like a hotel, you may need to put in your room number, airport, they may have a code somewhere you got to find, I don't know, but you need, password, you need some type of access. Now, going into the network, right, we're accessing our network. There are 2 types of data that we can send to our network, right, from our end, because this is us right here. We can send data like an email, or we can send voice, like a phone call, okay? This kind of comprised of the network team. And like I said, I'm on the voice side. And then, I work with others on the data side. So there are 2 totally different teams here. I still have to understand data information because the only way, I'll know how to differentiate voice traffic from data traffic. However, we have to differentiate it because we'll talk more about it, but we'll talk about quality of service. And basically that is just prioritizing different packets, different types of data over each other. And that would be voice data is more priority over regular data. And that's because we can retransmit sending an email. Like if you can wait, yes, it is a little, absurd, but you can wait like 5 minutes for an email. That is like a long time when you think about it, but you can wait that. But voice, if I'm on the phone with you, I can't wait 5 minutes until I hear you say, hello, this is Jim, And if my packets are out of order, which, if quality service is not applied, my packets are out of order, I could hear Jim, my name, hello, all out of order. And it's like, what are you talking about? So yes, we need voice it's our top priority over data. And we have to separate that. And how we separate that is virtually. because this is, you know, ones and zeros anyway. And virtually is through VLANs. That is a virtual local area network. That means that we have a local area, you know, no, it's not, you know, on the internet, it's only locally in our office or in our home. And we're separating the traffic, you know, it's virtual. We're gonna separate, here's data. So anytime somebody wants to send data or, you know, information that is not through your audio, then it will go through, you know, this means this VLAN. We'll talk about, when we talk about VLANs, no, we're just briefly discovering VLANs. If you want to get more into it, remember to review the computer science CCNA course. That's the free edition. That'll give you way more information on VLANs and how to configure it and stuff. But right now, we just want to get an understanding of access to the network. Okay, access to the network, again, separated by virtual local area networks, which is something we just configure logically, and that's between voice and that's between data, okay? And we have to do that in the means of, you know, voice is just more important, just like I gave you the example with the phone call. You know, we can wait for the email, we can wait for the instant message, quote unquote, but we can't wait for voice. And then of course we just have our Ethernet packet, our Ethernet cable, okay? So moving on into separating that data. So we separate that data. How do we do that? Now there's packets. There's things called Ethernet frame, because we're talking about layer 2. A packet is layer 3, but let's talk about the whole thing. So within that frame is a MAC address. We have to use that to know where to send this data. Are we sending this data? Let's just put a computer right here. We want to send this data from one computer A, to computer B, okay? And it comes through the network in the form of a frame, and that frame reads the MAC address. Like we talked about earlier, it needs some type of address to, you know, send. And we talked, you know, I think we kind of just mentioned this as well. This MAC address is all about the vendor who created this product, and then they have the serial number that will belong in the vendor's, you know, database. Okay, so you can look at your MAC address and see, you know, who's the manufacturer of it if you don't know. Now, this MAC address, like I said, is what we read off this frame. Now, again, 2 addresses that we need in order to send data. We need a MAC address and IP address. We'll talk about IP addresses later, which is tomorrow, yes. But so today is all about layer 2, which deals with only MAC address, okay? As you can see here, here's an example of a local area network, right? It's just local. We're not trying to go anywhere outside to the internet. We just wanna send, you know, our colleague, you know, some mail, an email. Hey, you know, did you see the email, right? She's probably, you know, 2 cubicles down or something. I don't know. But just know that they're in the same office. Now, when you decide to send, you know, Emily that email, your computer is going to create a frame, okay? And this is an Ethernet frame. Now, this frame is built with, your destination MAC. So where do you want to go? Oh, I want to go to, you know, Emily, right? And then your source MAC, the source, this is me, so I need my MAC, okay? And then it builds some other stuff, which is a packet right here. We'll talk about that tomorrow, once again. And it'll say, what's the destination IP of that, of Emily? Oh, okay, she's on this network. And then what's your IP? Okay, this is my network. And then this is the email, you know, hey girl, you know, you see Kanye? And then the trailer is basically just checking, I don't know why I call it trailer right here. We call this the CRC, I think, cycle, reframe, check, I don't know. It's in the CCNA course, but this is where we check for errors to make sure that, you know, this is not corrupted. This rest of this frame is not corrupted. And once this frame gets to, because this computer, your computer is going to create this frame, is going to send it to the switch. Switches only forward MAC addresses. They don't do anything else, okay? Intelligence is to have a MAC address table to keep all these MAC addresses that's on the network, that's on the local network, has nothing to do with the outside world, and forward these frames. They say, hey, you want to go here, you want to go here, you want to go there. That's all a switch do, okay? Now, when the switch sees this frame, it's going to look at it, read it, and rewrite this frame and send it on to its destination. We're not going to go in on frame rewrites and all that stuff. That's more geared to the CCNA. So if you want to learn more deep into it, I would say go into that. But at least you know that when it's time for you to access the network, your computer is going to build a frame. So every time you come up with a text message or an email, or we're chatting in Discord, it is sending this frame in ones and zeros to a switch. And in your case, it would just be to your Wi-Fi box if we're talking about home. But we always want to keep in mind of an enterprise because we want to think bigger. We're engineers, we're developers. So, the computer is going to send this frame to the switch in our corporation, in the company. The switch is literally just saying, hey, who are you? Where you want to go? Who are you? Oh, okay. I know where that's at. Let me send it this way. Okay. And then it's going to do the same thing reverse. Emily's going to be like, oh, okay. It's going to reply, girl, that's crazy. And then it's going to send right back the same, and it's going to go, just to scroll up a little bit here. It's going to go through these layers. Okay. So we're at the MAC address. It's going to go all the way up here, get to her Gmail. She's going to open it, type some stuff, and it's going to go all the way back down to the MAC address so she can read it, right? So it just does this circle with these layers. That's why it's important to really reference these layers a lot, because it helps with troubleshooting. If someone cannot access if someone can't access a website, if you're like, oh, I can't access, technically speaking, I'm going to say, okay, well, first, can I access it? And if I can't access it, then maybe it's not just a layer one issue, because we're not even in the same area. So it has to be something outside of your local area. So maybe it's something with the transmission. Maybe it's something with network. Most likely it's probably like a DNS issue. But we'll get into that later with DNS.
Is the switch the green in the middle, the green little?
Yes.
That's okay, just making sure.
Yep. You will always see, as far as Cisco is concerned, you will always see a switch being represented in this icon. A router will be a circle with, some lines or whatever. But yes, this is a switch. It'll always be represented like this. A switch kind of looks like a router. They're both, square, depending on the vendor, but they're both, all square, and they have a bunch of ports. Let's look at a switch. I dealt with a couple as far as physical, but I'm always hopping into a switch, running a few commands, and just checking what's going on. And as you can see, this is kind of more like the switch. This is a catalyst. What is this? I don't know if this is a catalyst or not. But yeah, these are switches. 48 ports. You'll see it just you see a whole bunch of cables. And if you're lucky enough to work in a data center, let me see, data center, you'll be playing around. You'll see it gets crazy with cables. Oh, they just want to show me that. It's not always that clean. Most of the time, well, the data centers that I've been into, they are in a basement, they're cold, and they're kind of dirty, they're dusty.
Yeah, facts, and the wires all over the place. Yo, they lie. Yeah. That's some facts.
Yes, it is not like this. This is a lie. Okay, the cables is like, I think it's gonna be a hazard, but they hire people, cable junkies. I don't know if you saw, I posted on my Facebook how my very first internship, I was fixing cables, like just exactly what it would look like. And I would go into training rooms. And training rooms were like, they just had a bunch of computers. People were they trained before they go into the job. Because I worked at a call center. And I would literally take these cables and organize them. And that was my job for 8 hours. Organizing training rooms. And it would take me probably like a week per training room. And then once I'm done with that, they would move devices around so many times. So I would always have to go back and, reorganize them. And if I wasn't organizing them, then I would diagnose computers. So that's where I learned how to build computers. I would take out like the SATA cables or the motherboard. And it's really simple. Like, it's really like it's like Legos for real. It's not something that you got to be like, oh, I have all this knowledge about. It's really plug and play. Like, if it don't fit, then it's not there. Everything is kind of built for like the power supply and, the CD-ROM, all that good stuff. So I think that's another good skill you should probably learn. But regardless, yes, this is a switch, and there's a bunch of them stacked on each other. If you're doing the CCNA exam, you'll probably have to learn about a daisy chain, which is, how the switches are stacked on each other and how the data is going to flow with stacked switches, because this is a simple depiction. In an enterprise setting, you'll probably have 10 switches, you can connect to in just a local area network. So it can get crazy. It can get crazy. So just tying this all together with local area network, we talked about, access into the network, and it's by our computer, building a frame that's going to send in our switch. And our switch is just switching frames. It just forwards frames. So if it's not on the network, it has to go outside of our network, outside of our local area. And so it has to go to a router. And the router is going to end up going to a LAN, which is a wide area network. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Wide area. That's basically, you can call that the internet, right? It connects two LANs together. So because we want to talk to each other, I am on my land, you are on your land. So this is me, and then this is you. We want to be on a Zoom together and ask questions and talk. We need something to help us do that. And in the middle of that is our routers, our IP addresses, which is our WAN, our wide area network. Okay. If right here has remote users. So, if you were somewhere vacationing in Hawaii or something, you can just use a VPN, into the WAN and travel across a tunnel to whoever you want to talk to. But this slide right here is to depict the purpose of, because we're talking about layer 2, we're talking about network access, and the first layer that you get to when you want to access the network is in your LAN, and that's your switch. That's your layer 2. Okay. Again, tomorrow we'll talk more about layer 3, which is wide area, but at least you know that what a local area network is. Okay. So let me just recap really quick so we can put it together. Now, we're talking about our layers because yesterday we talked about what a network is in general, what's comprised of a network, just, all the network one-on-one. Okay. Now, for the rest of the days, we're going to go deeper into each of these layers that encompass a network, how the data flow. And the data flows through physical. We talked about that. Okay. Cables, routers, switches. But after it gets to the equipment, we have to access that. And we access that in either a voice or data type of way. So it's either audio with a phone call or audio message or something, and then it's our data. Okay, whether it's an email, text message, surfing the internet, I don't know, other than voice traffic. Okay, how do we separate that? We separate that through virtual local area networks. Okay, these are logical. There's nothing that we need a separate cable for. It's just something that we put in a couple commands and create it. And if you're in the CCNA course, you'll know it's one command to create a VLAN. Well, two commands, because you can have an access and a trunk. We're not going to go into that, but it's very simple to create VLANs. And this VLANs and how we're going to separate all of that is by ensuring that we have understanding of MAC addressing, because layer 2 is all about reading MAC addresses and forwarding those frames. Okay, those frames are when I first started, I would call them MAC address frames, but they're Ethernet frames, ones and zeros carried through the cable, okay, of our MAC address. Where do you want to go? Who are you? That's all the switch cares about, is where did this data come from and where do you want to go? We'll talk more about this little piece later, okay? And I mean, yeah, we'll talk more later because I don't want to get you into finding your MAC address. We'll bring that up later. But maybe that's a homework. Maybe I can assign that. You guys should find your own MAC address. Let's see how you can find that. And then of course, you know, local area network is local. It's the network that's local. We're not trying to, you know, talk across the internet yet. We just want to send our colleague a message, okay? Now, for your homework is to review section 2 of the computer science free course if you're onto the exam, okay? If you are not trying to take the exam, you wanna, you know, you have a different path than CCNA, we have picked on a tech, and I was glad that you guys brought that up because I had already put AWS as an example. And I saw someone was going to create a free AWS server. So definitely do that and store some data into that. Like really treat it as though, you know, you've been tasked at work to create this server, spin it up is what we would say, and, you know, store companies' photos, right? So take some photos, save some off the internet, or maybe take some photos of this course or some of these PDFs and decide to put it on the server. I don't know, I'm just throwing out things, but work on this tech. AWS, yes, if you're on the blockchain development, I already gave you your outline, so definitely go into that, or Azure, or I don't know what y'all know, but definitely work on that as far as actually creating accounts, actually, you know, getting your hands wet in the technology. So Linux, I will send you guys some stuff on Linux. I think, did I have some stuff already? No. But I'll send some stuff in the Discord to get you started on, you know, playing around with Linux. Let me see, what else do we have? That's really it for today. I don't want to get y'all overwhelmed. Did anybody have any, I see questions? The switch is like a switchboard operator back when telephones came out. Yes, correct. Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up because again, I take pride in my position, and I'm a voice engineer, and that's exactly what I do. You know, we start off knowing that, hey, the telephone switch, what we would back in the day, well, we still call it a PBX, a public switch exchange. And, you know, you literally plug in and out to switch calls. And that technology developed into a software, which we would call a PBX. And instead of actually having to physically, you know, take out each one to plug the call, the software will automatically open ports for the call. And that just developed into creating servers that we use on Linux. And again, I'm a Cisco engineer, so we deal with Cisco products that is specifically on Linux. I think it's Red Hat, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, we make sure that that technology can switch, well, our switch can switch the calls back and forth, you know? So definitely, I'm glad you brought that up there. Let me see, what other question? Do we have access to this PDF to follow along? Yes, you have that in your Notion, right here, network access. It's the same thing I just pulled up. And you know, it probably don't give you the squiggly lines that I drew, but yes, it gives you the same information. So you definitely can follow along. Let's see, what do you think I should start? Cybersecurity. hold on. Oh, let me go back up. Do you think going over the computer science bootcamp that you previous will be good? For cybersecurity, yes. Even if you're not going to take the CCNA exam, I honestly think you kind of should go a little deeper into that material because it will give you more details on how to secure these packets, because that's basically what cybersecurity is. You are securing this information. So if you know how to read this information, and you know how this information flows, then you can secure it. But so, yeah, I think that definitely take this time to go to section 2 of the CCNA, of the free course, and go in on that. Go in on that. Let's see, what else? Is AWS a better choice for those wanting to get into blockchain? Not necessarily. You can to understand servers better, to get your hands, wet. But it depends what level of blockchain. Blockchain is so wide, like what area of blockchain are you interested in? Are you into like just building smart contracts? I heard someone talk about fintechs, or are you into the DeFi space? Maybe you're in more to cryptocurrencies. I don't know, maybe you're into the selling, maybe you're into the graphics like NFTs, you want to do something more art creativeness. I don't know, it's so many different ways you can, utilize this. So AWS blockchain, maybe, you want to utilize their features that they have. So definitely go to AWS on I think it's the left-hand section. We'll have a section for blockchain. So go ahead and, review that. I think I have a PDF on that as well, because I was going through that a while ago when I was trying to, incorporate AWS in my system. I just stopped. I just had too much on my plate, so I had to just stop that. But yes, go into AWS, create a free account, and click on blockchain on the left-hand side, right-hand side, whatever, and in the settings, and play around with that. See what it's used for and stuff, right? Let's see. Will the PDFs to learn the basics for blockchain development be added to the Discord group? I can, I was gonna do that later on, but since y'all just so eager, I can do that now. Send blockchain PDFs. Now, when you say blockchain PDFs, are you talking about like just basic blockchain, or like are you talking about like coding, like actually building contracts? Stuff.
The basics.
The basics. Yeah, I can give you the basics. That's honestly, it's like my notes. So it's kind of like, not really formatted. It's just a whole bunch of notes that I took. So, you're open to them, and I'm going to send them in Discord. You can just go on with that. We will definitely go more in blockchain as weeks progress. I at least want you guys to understand how all this data even flows before we even get to decentralized data, right? So definitely. Let's see, did you say you had a blockchain course? I sure do. As far as interacting and investing, it's more on the side of, if you don't know anything about blockchain and you just want to get your feet wet, and you want to learn how to capitalize off of it, then I do have that course. I think it's like $7.99 or something, $6.99. You can get that. It really doesn't have anything to do with, computer science. It's more on like a beginner, hey, this is what blockchain is, and this is how you can make some money. And making money is what we'll talk in this course anyway about, which, things like yield farming or airdrop or staking, just a whole bunch of different type of ways, right? So yes, and then we have Solidity as well. We're going to go in and learn Solidity, learn the language, and create our first contract, right? So no worries, we're going to get there. And then smart contracts and possibly NFTs. Yes. NFTs, maybe not so much. My realm is really DAOs. That's kind of what I've been going down into. Just that, decentralized organization. DAOs create a crypto. So 90% of the cryptocurrencies that you see on Coinbase or other exchanges come from DAOs. So, that kind of goes hand in hand with that. So NFTs, I'll probably give you like a resource that you may have to do a little outsource if you want to go down that path. Because I may get in that path. We'll see. because I feel like DAOFlick should have an NFT. Should have everything involved in blockchain, should have the whole, ecosystem. But like I said, it's a small team and we're trying. So if you guys want to lend a hand, you lend some knowledge, I'm learning this just as well as you're learning this. I just have a little more knowledge than you guys because, I have been coding and I do know the networking side. So I am a little step ahead, but I am still new in this. I do not call myself an expert in this blockchain world at all. So if you guys want to, get together on DAOFlick and start creating some crypto projects, then, hit me up, join the DAO server, Discord server, start speaking. I don't know, but just putting it out there. So yeah, any other questions? Maybe look over here. No, I don't see any other questions. Any other comments, concerns, which y'all want to talk about, or y'all done? It's like 5 minutes in. But just always go to the Notion, when you're looking for the material. As far as playbacks, those are going to be on the Technically Speaking site. Just sign in under your boot camp. You'll see the videos uploaded. I did have them in the free course. They are, in Notion, but that was connected to YouTube, so it's free. But since these is only for paid members, I want to keep it, kind of more secure. So you have to go to the website to get the playbacks. But yeah, that's all I have here. If you guys don't have anything else, I'll give you your time back and we'll reconvene tomorrow and talk about routers. Okay. You're very, very welcome. Bye guys, I'm gonna stop sharing.